Hello everybody and welcome to the Great Guild Wars 2 countdown. There are only 9 or 6 days remaining till the launch of Guild Wars 2. By the way, one thing that everyone keeps trying to correct me on with the days is when you look at the Guild Wars 2 official website and it says, oh, right now it will say, if you go there, it will say that there's only 5 days remaining. But it's actually 5 days and then XX hours, which is why really it's 6 days. It's just counting down from then. So that's why it looks like it's 1 day shorter than usually is. But anyway, it is very close to the launch of Guild Wars 2. Nonetheless, I put out that video earlier of my plans for the channel going forward. It's nice to see that you guys are all quite excited about it. There have been a lot of people who have said, oh, I'm not sure you can do all of this, and oh, what's happening to your life? Don't worry about it. I am positive I'll be able to do everything that I want to. There's actually probably more time in the day than you'd expect, really. It's just how you organise it, I suppose. And I'm not even that good at organising my time, and I believe that very much. Anyway, the footage in the background comes from Heat Vids, who has submitted some World vs. World stuff for us, so thank you very much to them. It's a very long video, this one, and you're not going to be able to see all of it on today's daily. So if you do want to check out the rest of it, you can find a link in the description down below. For news, there's not been amazing news, I suppose. Shortly after I uploaded yesterday's video, ArenaNet revealed another image like that eye we were talking about yesterday of what seems to be a woman, and I say woman and I'll explain why, in some water, like out in the middle of some water and kind of just floating around. She doesn't actually look alive. She looks kind of dead to me, but it's another shot. It's another actual image. It certainly seems to be hinting that it's some kind of live action thing coming our way, probably a release trailer. I've heard people say that it could be an expansion trailer too, but that's probably a bit early to say that. But yeah, it looks very, very cool, and I think, did I mention yesterday that I think this could be air? Some people came up with that idea originally. They were saying, oh look, she's covered in mud, this seems like it could be air, but I think that the most compelling idea for this is actually, I was told yesterday, a few months ago, ArenaNet revealed some concept art on Facebook again that was of air underwater and like interacting with like some coral reef or something, and it was just a very peculiar bit of concept art that they revealed to us. And now with this new image, you can see that it seems to be a woman with red hair underwater again. It just seems a bit too coincidental to me, so I think it could be air. That's what my money's on. But my main question is, why the hell is air underwater? What is this live action trailer actually about? We thought we had the story about these characters, air in particular. We thought we knew these characters from the book and from all the extra story we've got around the Norn and so forth, but there's some other chapter of her life. Is this something that's going on in the events of Guild Wars 2, before Guild Wars 2, after Guild Wars 2, maybe? Who knows, but that's kind of my idea for it at the moment anyway, and we'll see how this goes. I'm sure it'll be resolved very soon though. Also, some people have noticed you can actually access the gem store, like the microtransaction store for Guild Wars 2 online. You can access that already. Actually, recently some new items were made available on there. There seems to be a new type of item. These are armor skins. If you played Guild Wars 1 and ever got involved with the microtransaction store there, you're probably familiar with this idea. This is what it sounds like to me. Basically, these are skins that you apply over your armor. So in Guild Wars 1, if you bought some armor, it would come in 2 pieces, a headpiece and then everything else was like all in one thing. And if you chose to equip it, it wouldn't unequip your existing armor, so you still had all the same stats and runes and insignias from your original armor, but just over the top of it would be like layered over whatever this new type of armor was and the way it was affecting you, and you could choose whether you wanted to display it or not. Seems like this same idea is going forward with Guild Wars 2, and these armors that you can get actually seem to be named after Guild Wars 1 armor sets that may not be returning in any other capacity outside of the microtransaction store. So 2 examples here. There is Primeval armor, which was endgame armor from Nightfall in Guild Wars 1, and there's also Crichton armor, which was armor from Prophecies in Guild Wars 1 too, and these are armor skins, so very curious. You can kind of see the icons. I'm not sure we've seen exactly what they look like though, but it does make me wonder actually. The game obviously focuses very much on the way you look. That's really what the end game of Guild Wars 2's PvE is going to revolve around, and to an extent PvP as well. As you get more glory, you can get new items and different ways to customize the way your character looks, and they will need a lot of variety for their armor sets, and if there are going to be all these extra ones here too from microtransactions, it makes me wonder how many different sets and stuff they've designed. I'm not sure how I feel about the idea of them having already designed armor sets, but they're selling them to us separately instead of just putting them in with the game straight away, but I think that shouldn't really come into it unless there was a shocking lack of variety in the game at launch, and we have seen through the PvP lockers and so forth in the stress tests and betas that there really is a lot of variety as it is. So yeah, you can see that. Also, there is an option in these new gem store items that have been added. There's an option to actually, through 2,000 gems, upgrade to the digital deluxe edition of Guild Wars 2 through the gem store. So if you're sitting there and you've only pre-ordered Guild Wars 2, just like pre-ordered the regular version of it, you still do have the chance of going up to digital deluxe. It's It's just you're going to have to spend a lot of money through the way of gems to do it, which is interesting. I like that they've given us that option. I never really got the feeling that Digital Deluxe was being marketed as some kind of exclusive thing to people that went for it. So I can't imagine anyone complaining, but it's interesting. And now that I know that's there, I'll be keeping a closer eye on changes that are happening there on the cash shop. Even when we're not available to see it in-game, we can still check it out through there, which is quite cool. One more thing as well before we go on to the questions. I mentioned in the update video once again about this community meetup I'd like to be doing on a weekly basis once Guild Wars 2 is out. Because I've said this, I've had another flurry of people asking what server I'm on. I'm sorry to everyone who have already answered this. I'll be on Emery Bay, which yes is a US server. However, I have made the decision that probably every third week or so, I personally will guest onto a European server where we will do the community meetup. So if you are concerned that there will be latency issues from guesting over to where I am for the community meetups, don't worry, because every now and then I will guest over to Europe. Although personally I don't think there will be much in the way of latency issues, not if things are the same as Guild Wars 1. Speaking of guesting though as well, another interesting bit of news, ArenaNet kind of came out with a statement saying that guesting isn't actually something that's going to be there at the launch of the game, but rather something they slowly introduce later. You can take that in various ways. First of all, I guess we can just assume that the guesting mechanic isn't finalized and it's not ready yet, but then there is also the question of what if it is ready, it's just that they're going to be adding it in later on because they want to get a bit of money out of people doing server transfers first. I have heard people saying that kind of thing. I think that might be a little bit cynical for my taste, but it could be something they're doing. Also, don't forget that all server transfers for that first week are free anyway. That's my dog barking, by the way, if you heard that. They're free anyway, so it's not like they're holding off on it for us just to get themselves a quick buck in the meantime. It's certainly not the same as that. So anyway, that was a bit of news too that came my way. Right, onto the questions. The first one is from Eru, who says, "Hey WP, I have a question. I'm concerned about MMO games getting dumbed down over time. I've played Lord of the Rings online for 5 years, and for me, the game became easier and easier over the years. The open world provides very little challenge for seasoned players, which for me made the leveling experience rather boring. I don't know if this is the case for MMOs in general to cater to the larger audience, and therefore the lowest common denominator too. The devs did say in their latest release, The Great River area, that there would be open world enemies of great strength and difficulty. For me, they really weren't. They were just a step up in difficulty from the overall low difficulty. This makes me feel that Lord of the Rings devs are catering to a lower denominator and lost touch with their higher skilled players. What do you think?" I do think there are times where developers of MMOs have to sit down and ask themselves, do we really want to go for this, because this is going to cut our audience in half. For an MMO, it is important that they retain at least some kind of audience for sure, and in a lot of ways they take a lot less risks than other games in other genres because they feel like they have to try and maintain this. The best example for me here really is the fact that it's very rare to find an MMO that gives itself an 18 rating or has really mature content or deals with very gory or sexual stuff. They just don't do that because they know that immediately they've cut their potential audience massively down, because now they can't have people below 18, which could be a significant portion of their player base. So this kind of thing does happen, but as far as difficulty is concerned, I feel like it's not so much that they want really stupid or incapable people of playing the game, but rather that you can't make a game like an MMO that is meant to be played for such a long time constantly the most difficult thing in the world. I think it's actually wrong to expect any MMO to be really difficult all the time. There are certain games and certain genres that can get away with being very difficult, and indeed a lot of the really difficult games actually market themselves off of that. They're difficult because they know that that's what people are looking for. But the truth is that people get a lot more out of games now than simply overcoming challenges. A long time ago, maybe that was the main thing about games, that they would pose some kind of challenge that eventually you'd get over, and the more difficult games were in some regard more fun because that was the main thing games would offer. But I don't think that's so true anymore. People find a lot more to enjoy in games, and particularly when it comes to MMOs that are so built around this idea of social interactions and communities with other people, the difficulty aspect of them isn't so important. The main reason though why I'd say most MMOs are generally easier games is it comes down to how long you're being expected to play it. People can't be at their maximum for hours and hours and hours on end. It will just get frustrating, and there's always a point where that you as a player are going to learn to be able to effectively deal with whatever challenge the game can give to you. So then what do? Do they make it unfairly difficult, so no matter how skilled you become, you can't overcome these odds? Well, no, because that just leads to frustrating gameplay. So it's a lose-lose situation, really, because people are either going to get really good at it, or you're going to make sure they can never get good at it, and they'll feel cheated and not want to stay. Having said that, though, I think it is important, just as important for MMOs to offer difficult content to people as it is any other game. It's just that it needs to be packaged in certain places. This is why you see MMOs, while leveling up and just generally exploring the world, they are less difficult and take less focus, while then they do also offer raids or dungeons or specific instances or certain parts of the storyline that are very hard. If they come in small doses like that and people feel like they can overcome difficult odds every now and then, you get that thrill and that enjoyment from it without the entire game feeling like it's becoming a chore. So that's why I feel like a lot of games, and probably the Lord of the Rings Online too, have taken this approach. I think if Lord of the Rings Online isn't offering any difficulty anywhere in its PvE, it's probably doing something wrong. But I don't blame any MMO for being relatively easier throughout normal content, because if they did it any other way, the game would just be frustrating. I think ArenaNet have been smart about how they've set it up for Guild Wars 2. You will have generally an easier experience until something comes along, like a difficult meta event that requires you to have lots of people around, or if you're going into the dungeon scene and you're going to have a lot more difficult content there, and PvP 2 could be classed as difficult content. The other nice thing about Guild Wars 2, and it's not exclusive to Guild Wars 2, is that you can, if you really want this difficult experience, make it for yourself. You can, if you want, wander into areas of the game that you are not at level appropriate for and enjoy that harder content. Now, I would say that the devs could encourage this behavior in some way by actually giving some kind of an achievement or something for partaking in that kind of activity. But if you are the kind of player that really just wants a very difficult experience thoroughly and throughout, then you have the option of making that experience for yourself. And I think that's the main difference. The people that really like this kind of thing will get the enjoyment without some kind of external reward the devs are putting in the game for them. So maybe that expectation for the devs to encourage us to do that kind of thing shouldn't be there in the first place. There's absolutely nothing wrong with really enjoying difficult content. It's just I don't think it should be forced across the board. If you do only enjoy the difficult content, then hopefully you'll probably find yourself as a player spending a lot of time in dungeons or the specifically end game areas. The point is that it's packaged and not forced across on everyone. I don't think there's anything to gain from a game that is hard all around. It's easy to sit there and say, oh, I'm a pro gamer, I only enjoy really difficult content. But the reality is, that's not what everyone's looking for all the time. And there's nothing wrong with that either. You need to create different parts of the game to cater to those different itches as and when people have them, rather than try and make everything flat in one direction. If it's all too easy, the game loses something, like it sounds like Lord of the Rings Online did. If it's all too hard, then you'll just frustrate people. Even, I would argue, a lot of the people that do love a challenge. I personally love a challenge, but not all the time. I want to have the choice to go and do something challenging, and I don't want to always be at my maximum, and people shouldn't be ashamed to appreciate that. That's my general opinion. I forgive MMOs for being easier as general content, because that's not the only thing that makes them fun, and that's not true for any games anymore. It's not about being really difficult, and if that is the only thing you enjoy about games, even in this day and age where there's so much more to appreciate and enjoy, if you still only care about the challenge, then you create that challenge for yourself, and the onus really is on you as the player rather than anything else, because the game isn't denying you that option. You should be making the choices you find most fun instead of forcing it on everyone else. That's just my opinion though, and I'm sorry to see that you didn't enjoy Lord of the Rings Online that much. Hopefully if you do go to Guild Wars 2, then it does, as I say, offer something for you there. Well guys, I would do another question, but I went out for a meal tonight. It's pretty late. I'm feeling pretty pooped, so I'm going to leave it there for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow for some more videos. See you next time, everyone.